Hey, it's Steve, and today we're going to start a new wine brought to me on Jack Keller's website. I'll post the link right here, along with the recipe right there. And you can pause it and take a look at it. It looks absolutely scrumptious. The name of the recipe, it's a dark chocolate or orange chocolate wine. Yeah, chocolate orange. Dark chocolate orange wine. And the reason why it's dark is not because of dark chocolate, but because we're going to be using a dark red grape. In this case, I'm using Barbera, or Barbera, I guess. I've never used that grape before, but it's a deep dark red, and I think it'll work well with the cocoa. We're once again using, similar to my strawberry wine, we're using my chocolate strawberry wine. We're using Penzie's Dutch processed cocoa, high-fat cocoa. Because it's Dutch process, it's taken all the bitterness out, the process that they put it through. What we'll start doing now is, and we've got 12, count them 12, different cans of pulp-free orange juice. And like I said, and then we've got 12 pounds of sugar. Starting to thin out here. We can add that anytime. I don't necessarily have to bring that up to a boil or anything. I didn't want it in granular form too much because it's got to mix up with some water. But we can start adding the orange concentrate. Now what I'll do is, I know there's still some left in here, like any thick syrup, but I'll dump as much as I can, and I'll rinse out the cans when I'm adding the water. And after I'm done with the orange juice, I'll go with the grape juice and the sugar, and then we'll add the acid blend and the tannin, which also has to go in, and some yeast nutrient. That'll be our next step after we add all these ingredients. But this should give it a nice orange flavor, and it better. There's a lot of orange juice. So that's all the orange juice. Now carefully, because this is a very dark grape, we'll rinse these cans out too. In the next stage, you'll also see that when we mix up the chocolate, I'll be reusing these cans to mix it in with the must, that's what this is. Now, very carefully handle the napalm here, otherwise known as the sugar. Pretty thick. I don't have a whole lot of water in there. But you got to be careful when you're working with, especially with sugars, because not only if it hits you, it will stick to you. So try to get it as close as possible. There we go. Boy, doesn't that look yummy? Kind of like an egg yolk, huh? Okay, that's as far as we'll take it right in this. In the next segment, we'll add up some water, and then we'll start mixing up the cocoa. All right, well, we're back, and I've added the water up to the 6-gallon level, or close to it, because I still have a few things to add. Other things we've done, I've taken the yeast nutrient, the acid blend, and the tannin. I always try to mix it up in a nice, because it mixes the tannin up in it, and it gets the tannin to sink and mix a little better. I could just do it in a slurry, but I mean, this works pretty good, just drying it like this, and then mixing it in. So, but before I did that, while you were gone, I figured I'd try to take a specific gravity on it. Needless to say, this is a port wine. This is going to be a sweet dessert wine. I couldn't even get a register on this. It's such a high gravity. Right now, it's at 1.0 136, which is about 18.5%, I believe, is what it's, around 18%. It won't get to that. The yeast I'm using might take it to 13 or 14, and then we'll fortify at the end with brandy, which will bring it up to about 20% or close to it. And that'll make it a nice, sweet dessert wine. But right now we'll add the 3 ingredients, the yeast nutrient, sprinkle it in on top, mix it in. I knew this stuff was going to be pretty thick just based on the ingredient list and the way I'm stirring. When you look when I'm stirring it and it's coming off the paddle and it looks like syrup, you know it's going to be a real high gravity musk. But it is what it is. It's got a lot of ingredients on it, and for a homemade wine made from basically just stuff you can find at the grocery store, it's not a cheap wine to make. But dessert wines, ports, aren't meant to be enjoyed by the bottle full. Just a little bit of glass, just a little glass. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the processed Dutch high-fat chocolate, and we're going to mix it in some of the must that I took out. About 2 cups worth of must. I'm going to use the cans. Basically all we're going to do, I've got all this measured out. I've got a lot more to add, but I'm just going to show you how I do it with the immersion blender that I got for my birthday. I'm going to pour in maybe 4 ounces. Start mixing it as soon as you can, because this stuff is really dry powder. You want to get in there, huh? Okay. What we're doing is mixing up the cocoa. Otherwise, it tends to be a real pain to try to mix it up if you just sprinkle it in. I did it with my, if you go back and look at my strawberry tapes, I actually did that in the carboy when I transferred it, after I'd already transferred it to the secondary. It works out okay, but it's a lot less messy if you can do it in small batches here and mix it in. So, I'll be mixing up the rest of this cocoa, and I'll come back and we'll do the final additions. Okay, we're back. All the grape is mixed in with the Dutch chocolate. If you look real close, well, you don't even have to look close. You can see how chocolatey it is now. It's no longer a nice red. It's really a deep, deep chocolate brown. Now, because this is so thick, and because I'm using Dutch chocolate, or any chocolate for that matter, going to get a lot of foaming, I'm anticipating, from what I've read and what I've experienced with my other chocolate wines. So what I'll do is take 1 or 2 gallons, probably 2 gallons, out in a separate bucket and ferment it for the first week until it settles down a little bit. Now, I started a yeast starter earlier today with a little bit of grape juice, a little grape concentrate, a little orange juice, and some water and some honey. And that's been bubbling all day, so I've got a nice colony going in there instead of just adding it dry, especially with a high gravity wine like this, high gravity must. Getting millions and millions of more yeast in the must is a great thing to start out with to prevent stuck fermentation. So we'll drizzle this over the top. And I'll give it a couple more hours before I transfer the other 2 gallons onto another carboy. But I'll put the top on and let it sit for a little while. And that'll be it until 5 to 10 days, when the primary fermentation will be done, things will be slowed down, then we'll transfer it into glass, and we'll go on from there. See you next time.